Well, let me ask you about something we're going to do after we get Glass-Steagall. Given your role in designing, fighting for the Strategic Defense Initiative, you seem to be the perfect person to ask about the current threat of thermonuclear war, which Obama and his controllers are pushing for. There's a couple of different directions this could go, obviously. On the one hand, there's the need to prevent the Syria war from occurring, which would lead to a broader conflict, which involved Russia and China. The horror of contemplating the effects of such a war should lead any sane person to act to stop it, or any other things that would lead in that direction. But you've also identified a second direction which we ought to take, going back to the SDI program and into your current calls for a strategic defense of Earth, a cooperation between the U.S., Russia, China, and others against threats both here on Earth and from our neighboring surroundings in space. We've got the threat from both sides of the possible extinction of the human species. So let me ask you this. If we succeed in removing, or when we succeed in removing the power of the Anglo-Dutch system over our nation and the world, what would the nature of strategic relations be among nations in the thermonuclear age? It seems that a U.S., Russia, etc. SDI program based on technology sharing and collaborative development of new technologies would be a keystone in such an effort. Could you address this deeper challenge?
Well, we have some discussion in our own ranks on these related questions, including from the basement team. And what we're looking at now is the fact that what we need is to increase the energy flux density of the international system, which means that we shall be going to thermonuclear fusion as a driver of a recovery of the world system. This means improved changes in the water system and everything else. These things are already there. They're already implicitly there. So what we have to do is we have to create a high energy flux density driver specifically focused on the United States in one part, but the United States, especially from the Mississippi River on westward, into across the Pacific, up to the Arctic region, and so forth, and around the world. So in that case, we take the case of China. China has now been pushed into a situation where it realizes that its present status is uneasy, to say the least. Therefore, what they realize that Europe is collapsing. That is, the European economies are disintegrating. Other parts of the world, their economies are disintegrating. China was pulled into a role in 2-3 decades now. And this role was of promise for them, they thought. But then they saw that the collapse of Europe, the collapse of the economy of the United States, was putting China in a position in which its previously established policy will not function effectively. So now, therefore, we realize that the whole region, and we take, for example, the Mississippi River as a point where we have a crisis in water, crisis in the ability to produce food, all these kinds of things. And this extends across the Pacific into China, into northern Russia, that part of Russia, up to the Arctic, and around the world. So if we follow this kind of policy, which is perfectly feasible in principle, it doesn't mean you can get instant results right away, but you set a program into place of this type, it will work. It can work. The technology exists. So what we have to do is concentrate on saying, well, look, we've got a population in the United States. We can, under the Obama and the previous Bush family in government, we can no longer maintain the feeding of the population of the United States. And what Obama has done in particular has meant the guaranteed death of starvation of many of our citizens in this country. So therefore, we have to immediately change that policy, go to a higher technology policy, kill the green policy. Because under the green policy, Americans cannot live. they will die. Under a continued green policy, they will die en masse because we are not providing enough food, and the amount of food available is decreasing per capita, particularly with these other kinds of things. So therefore, what we have to do is we have to think about, instead of trying to fix something as it is, because what is can no longer be fixed, we have to go back to resuming scientific and technological progress as the policy on which we base the future of the United States, the future of the Pacific region, the future of China, the future of Japan, so forth and so on, the future of India. All of these things depend upon this change. And we obviously in the United States have a global mission consistent with our original founding as a nation, is to use our own powers, our own constitution, as the instrument which is used for the benefit not only of our own nation, but those of other nations. And we have to say, we have to get across to the American people and other people exactly what this is, what the options are, why it will work, how it will work. These are all things that are known to many among us. And we just simply have to make this into a program. What you do then is you say, okay, the recovery of the United States from an absolute disaster now pending depends upon going back to Glass-Steagall. We use the Glass-Steagall, which is actually a constitutional concept, because that was the way the United States organization was founded, was with the equivalent of Glass-Steagall. So we have to go back to that instrument, focus everything we do on that economic instrument, the instrument of economic policy, a single policy which it fits us and our needs and fits also the needs of cooperating nations across the Pacific and so forth. And that's the way we have to look at this. We've got a complex problem. What you have to do is take the point of advantage where you can control the problem. Use that mechanism of control to organize the recovery of not only the United States, but the benefit of nations around the world. So take the Mississippi River north, look westward, go west, young man, cross the Pacific, go into Asia, and build a system of high technology, very high technology, led by thermonuclear fusion, which is a feasible technology now. How far we can go and extend it now is going to take time. But by our commitment to doing that means that we can solve this problem on a planetary basis. Which means then, if we're going to save the United States from bad things out there in space, we're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to use thermonuclear fusion as the instrument to defend the United States against destruction in the solar system. So therefore, we have to have a single focal point on which we can educate the American people generally to understand exactly what this is. No tricks, no secret moves, but plain, honest facts. What measures will have to be taken, starting with Glass-Steagall, which become feasible through Glass-Steagall, to cooperate with other nations from the Mississippi River going westward around the world. And that is a policy which we can entrust to our successors. This will work. It will work on the planet, and it will work in defense of the planet, all at the same time. Keep it simple. Look at this single measure which gives you the greatest advantage in doing the job. And that's what we've got to do.